What's going on, everyone? So, the upcoming Scream 7. We're still all anxiously waiting around for a teaser or a trailer or some, higher end marketing. We've gotten a little marketing, but this is going to be a Sidney focused film. Sidney Prescott is supposed to and expected to be in the forefront of this all. And I'm excited. I know I'm on record. I'm somebody that has said I want us to move past Sidney Prescott. And, to a degree, I still do. I just think, there's so much potential with Scream and whatnot. But I understand, given the circumstances, after everything that happened and unfolded with Melissa Barrera, right? It's kind of like, what's the safest bet to continue this franchise? It's Sidney Prescott. So I'm fine. I'm on board. Like I talked about, no issues. Let's do it. I just want a good story. I just want good character development, right? Like, okay, we're back in the Sidney realm. Fine, but let's make sure we're developing her further, developing her family, because you have major dynamics in this film that we never even could have fathomed 10 years ago, right? Even, up until Scream 5, we never thought it would even have been possible for Sidney to have kids, or, would she have ever trusted somebody enough to marry and, have children with and all those things, just given her life. So, there's some big things here for Sidney Prescott. I'm all for her and her life and just kind of how they're going to approach this. And I just hope that they do it justice. I trust now that she's on board. She's talked about, kind of having an input. Kevin Williamson back at the helm, he's had an input, but I don't imagine that they rewrote the entire script. So we'll see how that all plays out. But with Sidney Prescott, got a couple little just minor details, nothing crazy, nothing spoilerish, nothing that's going to like ruin the movie or anything for anybody. Just a couple little kind of key points that I thought were really interesting that I wanted to share. Obviously, always take this stuff with a grain of salt. Obviously, always, nothing is official, nothing is confirmed until it actually is. But like I said, it's nothing that I could see being like, wow, there's no way that, like, it's all just, again, little minor details about Sidney Prescott and kind of where she's at this point in her life. So diving right into it. These are the details, and it comes from Jude. I'm sure many of you are familiar. Again, take everything with a grain of salt, but according to them, Scream 7, Sidney T. She has some of the most quotable one-liners in the entire franchise. So that's awesome. We're going to get some good, like, that was like one of the things about Scream 5, right? We got the, on board type thing and, her shooting through the door and stuff, like very Sidney-esque things. I wasn't a fan of the way that they kind of utilized her in Scream 5, but I'm hoping that we get some, just some quality lines, those one-liners from Sidney Prescott. She's dealt with this so many times, right? She's just probably over it all, like, so I could see that. I think that that's something that could be pretty cool. Just some quality one-liners, but also she has a powerful reconciliation moment with Gale after something shakes them both. I want to touch on that point here in a moment. And then lastly, arm slashed, she tears a birdhouse out of the ground and smashes Ghostface with it. Now, obviously, again, Scream movie, Ghostface is going to attack her. She's going to fight them off. So, get creative, right? Like, you find the closest thing to you. If it's a birdhouse, you pull that birdhouse out and you wha-bam, right into Ghostface's, kisser, right? So I do think that is something that I thought was pretty interesting. That there's going to be like a birdhouse and maybe Ghostface will be seeing birds chirping and whatnot. But I want to talk about that second kind of point that was made. She has a powerful reconciliation moment with Gale after something shakes them both. So again, doesn't give you like details on like what that is, which is good, right? But a couple things, right? Gale and Sidney have always had this kind of love-hate relationship, right? Like they went from like enemies and hating each other to like, they probably would still enough drinks in enough situation, they'd probably get into a bar fight type thing to like, like they're like frenemies in a lot of ways, right? But they're always there for each other when they need it. They're connected by the bond that is Ghostface, right? Like the experiences that they've had and how many attacks and whatnot that they've been through. So, they've always had that kind of love-hate relationship. Supposedly Gale is staying with Sidney in this film. So what could it be that would kind of cause a little bit of a rift, a little bit of drift? I mean, that is it could be a million things, right? I mean, it's very possible Sidney finds out some new information that she had no idea about, that Gale maybe kept from her. It could be something, from the past. It could be something present. Maybe Gale got her daughter into some trouble or into some danger or something, right? Or, didn't tell Sidney that her daughter was in danger. So like there's so many potentials, so many possibilities. There is the psych ward person, right? So like that Gale supposedly hits. Like it could be something as simple as that, right? Like supposedly she hits the person like close or maybe even in front of Sidney's house. So maybe she could be like, man, you're bringing out all this attention. You're bringing all this noise to me that I didn't want, right? And another big thing too is I've proposed this idea before. Like, is she going by Sidney Prescott, right? Or is she going by another kind of alias? And that's how she's been able to, stay under the radar, kind of owns her bar, small town, stays to herself, right? And she doesn't want to draw the attention. Where, if all of a sudden you have this media frenzy because of, this patient that escaped and Gale, and I could see that maybe potentially causing a rift where maybe her real name gets out, like, oh my god, like Sidney Prescott lives in this thing, right? Because she's so a big time celebrity in the Scream universe. So maybe it is something where just kind of you spilled the beans in a way, or you got me caught up in a way, and they through attacks kind of put their their frustrations aside. Right? There's a lot that could kind of be played into this and discussed about how they could end up kind of getting in a little bit of a squabble or argument or whatever. But that's also, again, their nature, right? They're two characters that do have a love for each other, and I imagine, especially after Dewey's death, there would be some type of like bond even further. Right? It's like that was the one thing that really tied them together, that really kind of connected the dots, and it's one of those things. They're grown now. It's like, like we've gone through so much, we've experienced so much together. Like if anyone's going to be there for you, it's me type thing. So I do think that is something very fascinating. Ultimately, again, you're probably going to have a lot of different conflicts, like with Sidney and her daughter, and Sidney and her husband, and, and just, a lot of struggles, like all of this is because of me type thing, now my family's in danger, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure that this will be dramatic to an extent, right? I imagine that she's probably going to be going through all kinds of emotions and frustrations and all kinds of things to an extent. Hopefully it's stuff that, makes sense. Hopefully it's stuff that actually like, furthers the plot and is not just kind of like this, like, okay, well, that was pointless type thing. Like I said, there's a lot of potentials and possibilities for how this could shape up and what that could be. But again, nothing major, just little minor details that I thought were fun and worth sharing and kind of having a conversation about. But anyway, as always, there's a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Do you have any kind of inputs on the what could cause a rift between Sidney and Gale? Do you have any kind of thoughts on the other PowerPoints or key points? Have a feel, either way, love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.